Welcome to the podcast. Glad you could all stop by and see what we had to say. I have a guest with me today, Erin Lee, and we'll hear about her story this afternoon. And so, kind of excited about that. I actually first saw Erin at Lance Wallnau's Courage Tour in Phoenix, Arizona, back in, I believe it was March or April of 2024. And I was just really enjoyed her story that she told, but it was also kind of an eye opener, wake up call that what she was saying was real. So welcome, Erin. I appreciate you coming and joining us.
Hey, Pat, thanks for having me.
And you actually have a couple things that you manage. So what hats do you get to wear?
Yeah. Primary hat is mom of three and wife here in Northern Colorado, but I also am a co-founder and executive director of Protect Kids Colorado, which Lance actually was a big part in helping us launch. And then I also founded StopGenderIdeology.com as a resource for other families going through what my family has. And then I'm also executive producer of a film about our family called Art Club that's available for free at artclubmovie.com.
Oh, cool. Okay. So we were talking off camera, well, actually on camera, but before we started recording, you're not originally from Colorado. So how did you end up in Colorado?
Yeah, I'm originally from Indiana, but my husband's a Floridian through and through, and we just kind of randomly on a whim in a matter of weeks quit our jobs and moved across the country to Colorado from Florida, and we didn't understand why. We just felt like we needed a change of pace, and we were not strong believers before what happened to our family happened here in Colorado, and didn't understand at the time why we were called here. I now completely understand why we were put in this place at this time to be the voice that we have become for so many families.
Could you share some of that story about what you learned and what was revealed to you over the last several years?
Yeah, we May 2021 is when our whole world was turned upside down. Our daughter had just turned 12. We had just moved to Colorado, to a new city in Colorado, new schools. It was the height of COVID. Our daughter's a very shy, introverted girl. And in her sixth grade classroom, her art teacher and homeroom teacher asked her to stay after school for an art club. When she got there, she discovered it was actually GSA, or Gender and Sexuality Awareness Club. And the teacher had invited in outside presenters who run an organization called Splash for kids 12 and up and Skittles for kids 2 to 11 years old to talk about gender and sex. They're embedded in our county health department, our library system, our school systems. They're substitute teachers, just very, very much entrenched in the community. I had never heard of them before this club, but they did things like tell my daughter if you're not completely comfortable in your body, that means you're transgender. What 12-year-old girl is comfortable in her body? Of course, she adopted that label. So they celebrated her with flags and stickers and bracelets and swag. I call it glitter bombing. They asked her about sexual attraction, and when she did not know, they said that means you're queer. So now you're queer and transgender, and here's more items to go along with your new label. Oh, and by the way, these labels make you more likely to commit suicide. And your parents probably won't understand, so you don't need to tell your parents about your identities, about this club meeting. They talked about explicit sexual concepts like polyamory, which I had to Google after I learned that my child was exposed to these concepts. They connected my daughter online with these predators on WhatsApp and Discord and various teen chat platforms where parents are not monitoring those conversations. And her teacher even emphasized as she left the room, remember, you don't have to tell your parents about this. And so we're lucky that our daughter came home and told us what had happened, but it wasn't because she was like, Mom, this horrible thing happened to me. It was, I'm transgender now. Oh, I understand why I'm so uncomfortable in my body. I understand why I'm such a misfit and so socially awkward. It's because I'm actually transgender. I'm a boy and my name is Toby now. And I want to cut my hair. And I'm not going to wear a girl's clothes. You can't make me wear girl's clothes anymore. It was like we sent our daughter to school on a regular Tuesday, little macaroni and cheese eating, sleeps with a teddy bear, innocent little girl. And she came home, her innocence had been robbed, and she had been completely brainwashed into believing she was truly transgender and that all her problems would disappear if she just walks out this path of transgenderism. I mean, they celebrated her for it. She found this new community of people who welcomed her when she was socially isolated. And it led to the darkest, scariest year of our lives. I mean, it was truly a nightmare getting her out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as easy as you as mom saying, "Oh, that's not true." She had bought this whole thing hook, line, and sinker in just one club meeting.
90-minute meeting, but I now understand that was preceded by years of indoctrination of, pronoun conversation. What are your pronouns? Of
Wow.
girls using the boys' bathrooms and boys sleeping in the girls' overnight rooms during her fifth grade field trips. Learned that she had been assigned a reading exercise, a book called George, that was entirely about transgenderism at 11 years old. So it was assigned reading. It was in her math problems. I mean, they had peppered transgenderism into every facet of her public education to the point where it was really undetectable, but I wasn't looking for it either. And so we understand that she had been primed for years by the people in her school and her peers to be open to this idea. In fact, our school district touts the statistic that 47% of kids in the district are LGBTQ, 30% are transgender or non-binary. So it's a very common occurrence. It's not an isolated incident. It was almost like it's cool to be in the LGBTQ club, and if you're not, you're a misfit. And it became very easy for her to adopt that and very hard for us to refute it because again, we're not strong believers at the time. So we had not given her that foundation in Christ. We didn't understand that to teach her where to find her identity. And so she was searching the world for it and it was handed to her and all her problems would go away. If she's transgender, her pubescent discomfort will disappear. She'll just take puberty blockers.
Wow.
And her
Wow.
social awkwardness will go away because she'll just be a boy and she'll have this whole new crowd of people. And, we didn't know what to do. And so we took her to therapy because we thought we don't know how to have these conversations. We want to help her through this. And we learned the hard way in Colorado, there's state law that mandates licensed therapists can only affirm gender confused children. It is illegal for
Wow.
them to do anything but push them further into that mindset that they were born in the wrong body. In fact, that law is being challenged to SCOTUS this fall in a case called Childs v. Salazar that I've written multiple amicus briefs in because that law affected our family. But we pulled her out of the first therapist that made her worse. We took her to a Christian therapist thinking, okay, this person aligns with our values. We don't go along with this. She's not going to go along with this. She was afraid to touch it because for fear of losing her license. And
Sure.
so the second therapist made our daughter even worse. And it was about 6 months after the art club where she was such a confused, depressed, just ball of emotion that she left a suicide note. She said she didn't know how to live in her body, that, she went to these people for help and no one could help her, that she wasn't getting better. She was sold this lie that being transgender will make all your problems go away, and it was making her worse, which was very confusing. No one was helping her out of it, and that we're trying to wear that hat was such a dark cloud that it took us almost a year to finally walk her through it. And there was a moment where my husband sat her down at the kitchen table and had a very kind of angry, harsh conversation. And you kind of flew off the handle and said, "Is this really what you want to do? Do you think we don't love you? You think we don't support you? Do you want to go shave your head right now? Let's go shave your head." And she kind of broke down like she was waiting for that off ramp. And we were finally giving it to her. And it was
Mhm.
like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. I'm not Toby. Help me out of this. And that was when we started to walk her back. And thank God she's such a, just really, she was always a precocious, very emotionally intelligent, mature. We call her Grandma Spock. She's our little old soul, just our wise old owl. And she got it. She was able to understand that she was taken advantage of and that this was not the right fit for her,
Wow. Wow.
nor was it even real, transgenderism, the ability to become the opposite sex. She very quickly was able to be walked out of it. Sorry, that was very long-winded, but that's
Yeah.
that's our
No.
year in a nutshell. And we're 4 years later now.
And so how is she now? I mean, does she speak up about it or against it or talk to friends or anything about trying to help others deal with some of this confusion?
Yeah, she's 16 now. She's getting her driver's license next week. And for about a year, it was just a really sore subject, and we didn't touch it. I was public about her story outwardly, but we didn't talk about it internally. She's now in such a good place. She has said to me, Mom, that was one page in one chapter of my book, and it doesn't define me. I can talk about it because I know that it's just one small part of my story. But she actually did her first public speech in April in Denver with some big names with like Miriam Grossman and Jamie Reed, the whistleblower, and Chief Counsel at the DOE, Candace Jackson. And she got up on these stage with these powerhouse activists and speakers and told her story. And there was not a dry eye in the room. And what happened in that moment on the stage in front of hundreds of people was she realized the shame and guilt that she was carrying. Like
Hmm.
she broke down crying and like, I can't believe I put my family through this. And I'm so embarrassed that I was deceived in this way. And then I'm bawling. And then the detransitioners look at her and say, Chloe, look at me. I was deceived. You know what Jamie Reed said, I'm a 45-year-old woman and I was deceived. You let go of that
Yeah.
shame right now. And so now, her story is such a testament, her public testimony, it really speaks to the empathy that we need to have for these kids and the shame and guilt that they carry. That she didn't realize she had been harboring until she was up on that stage in front of hundreds of people and really let it out. And so she's really been an inspiration for other kids and has had one-on-one conversations with gender confused children. And her friends all know at school now. She's been very open. She's given a public, speech, or not public, but a speech in her class to all of her classmates about what she's went through, what she's gone through. And I'm just so proud. She's fully on the other side and is really a testament to kids being able to come out of this in one piece.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. That's really exciting to hear that because so often we, especially some of the detransitioner testimonies we hear, they bear the physical scars of surgeries and greater things that they've allowed done to their bodies to try to find that place of peace and everything's okay, that those lies that they're told in the process. So
To the tunes of thousands and thousands. One of the biggest obstacles I'm up against in just trying to educate other people is how pervasive this issue really is, how it's completely ubiquitous, that it is happening to tens of thousands of families. When we went public, I decided to go public with my favorite journalist, Alex Newman. People should follow him if they don't. He's a brilliant journalist, everything through a biblical worldview. He shared our story, and within a week, I was on Tucker Carlson and Glenn Beck, and I was just this mom who wasn't prepared for our story to blow up in the way that it did. But what I learned is that so many families started reaching out. I have now counseled thousands of families. I run a support group with thousands of people in it because this is such a common issue and because it's not so easy to come out of it. Most of these parents are fighting for their kids' lives. They're fighting to keep that relationship. They are struggling to pull their kid out of the darkness, or they're afraid to talk about it. They're afraid to lose their job, to be publicly chastised. And so I, feel this calling to be the voice piece for all of these people because they're and really, there's nothing to be scared of. I've been called every name in the book. I don't really care what the world says about me, but it's just such a common issue, and it's happened to so many people. Ours is not an isolated story. It really has become the norm.
yeah, and that's sad that it has become the norm, but it is. It seems no matter where we go, no, across this country, like I said, my wife and I we traveled. With a tent evangelist for 2.5 years, and everywhere we went, it was all the same across this country. I mean, so it, yeah, you can't really get away from it. Um, so as you were walking through some of this stuff, then you started some of these other outreaches. You for other people to try to help them. The organizations and the websites that you maintain now. And you're also very vocal, like on social media. I mean, is this just something that you are driven by now, or are you trying to create a bigger uproar or a bigger uprising of parents? Because I know in just some of the laws, I guess, that have been passed in Colorado against parental rights. I know that you've spoken against those at a great extent.
Yeah. Well, I, believe it or not, was just about the most non-confrontational, shy person in the world and did not want to have to speak up to this. Originally, it was selfishly motivated. Yes, baby, go plug it in, okay? Hold on 1 second. Mom first and foremost. My
Amen.
just turned
Amen.
5-year-old loves to bust in when I do podcasts. Um, you know, like I said, the responsibility fell on my shoulders because there were so many families who did not have a voice on the issue. And so originally when this happened, we called the police after the art club. We said, this was definitely sexual abuse of our child. What can you do? And they said nothing within the limits of the law. But if it were me, I would get loud in the community and make sure other parents know what's happening.
Mm.
And that coupled with my daughter, when she started to come out of the darkness, we watched What is a Woman, the Matt Walsh documentary on the Daily Wire, which great
Yes.
film about very entertaining about this issue. We were watching it and she goes, Mom, why didn't I understand this was happening to me while it was happening? Well, they took advantage of you. And she said, how do I make sure this doesn't happen to other little girls? And that was the light bulb moment where I went, oh, we have to tell your story now. You're on the other side. We have this obligation to be vocal. And that's, like I said, it took off like wildfire and people started coming at me from every direction. And I realized when this happens to a family, there are no resources for people like us who don't want to go along with it, who follow their instinct that this is not right. This is not good for my child. I'm not going to affirm this. The whole world stacked against you. The
Yes.
education system, the counselors say, do you want a living son or a dead daughter? You better go along with this. Our counselors, our pediatrician threatened us with what I call the suicide myth. Would you rather have a living son or a dead daughter? You must go along with this. You must give her psychotropics to keep her from killing herself. Don't address the issue, just give her the drugs. And so we were bullied with that mentality. And so I created Stop Gender Ideology to be a place where when parents Google, they have a resource that says, no, here's how to get your child out of it. Cut off the bad resources, take them to church, teach them to find their identity in Christ is always my bottom line message to parents,
Yes.
or else your kids will be searching the world forever. And my daughter definitely preaches that message to gender confused kids as well. But it really, I set out just to be a resource for other parents and a voice for them. And that's how Protect Kids Colorado started. I live in a state where we can't fight bad legislation, we can't pass good bills, and it is just bill after bill that pushes this trans agenda, that forces therapists to go along with it, that made 12-year-olds a steward of their own health care, that forces teachers to socially transition kids. Now we have 1312 that just passed, which makes it illegal to misgender or dead name someone. If you won't call a man a woman, then you can be hit with up to $55,000 penalties every time you use the wrong name and
Oh my
pronouns.
gosh.
Yes. So I actually have a federal lawsuit. Protect Kids Colorado filed a lawsuit against that law. But we also run ballot initiatives so that we're one of 27 states that has a process. And this is where Lance Wallno helped me get started with Protect Kids Colorado, just to put these issues before the voters. Because most people don't agree that parents should be lied to and kids should be mutilated and that boys should be invading girls' single sex spaces. And we've really learned that the majority of people are aligned with our mindset. They're just afraid to say it out loud. So if we
Right.
just put it before them on a ballot and allow them to fill in the bubble, that will topple the dominoes of gender ideology in this radical state of Colorado. And I believe what we implement here can be rolled out to all the other states that are being affected by it's really a cult-like mentality, gender
Yes.
ideology. It's a religious cult. It is all or nothing. Separate kids from their parents. Our way is the way. And I'm really fighting every angle I have. We also filed a federal lawsuit. Pam Bondi took our case. So my family and another family who was in the art club will be appealing to the Supreme Court this week, actually, and should know this fall if they'll take our case. So just trying every angle to wake people up and change the laws that are putting parents like me in this position.
So a minute ago, you made reference to the myth of suicide. And I believe Miriam Grossman talks about that in her book. And that was the first time I'd ever heard something. Yes, that one.
Great book. We're in it,
Amazing.
actually.
I actually got to see her and um, in a turning point. They were at a church in Phoenix when we were there too. So not only was that where I ran into you, but that was the first time I'd ever heard Miriam speak. And so I got that book and read it. So can you explain the that concept of that myth?
Mhm. And it's a myth. 100% of my experience now helping thousands of parents through this indicates that a child does not become suicidal if you won't affirm their delusion that they've been born in the wrong body. They become suicidal when you push them down the impossible path of changing their sex. It's impossible.
Hmm.
You cannot change your sex. No one is born in the wrong body. And to teach a kid that is, manipulative and evil, and that's what leads to suicidal ideation. Then couple that with the actual physical mutilation of their bodies. These
Yes.
detransition, their suicide rate skyrockets after they've had these procedures and realize they're irreversible and that they're causing additional physical problems. But we're all bullied with that. There's a circular evidence ring where it's W path leads to the Dutch study, leads back to W path, and there's no science to support that the suicide rate goes up. In fact, Chase Strangio, who argued for the ACLU at the Skermetti case at the Supreme Court, even admitted during that hearing that there is no evidence to indicate the suicide rate goes up. But that's what they use to bully parents.
Right.
And I have to say, too, people need to have empathy for the parents who've been bullied into it. I have been in their shoes. And when you hear a detransitioner like Chloe Cole, usually the reaction is, where were her parents? How did they let a double mastectomy happen to their minor child? But when you're in a room and you're trusting the experts, which are the doctors, the counselors, the health department, the CPS department, everyone is saying, if you don't do this, your child will die. Those are your options. Either you mutilate your child's body or they'll die. That's all. They're the only options that you have. You have to choose. I understand how parents have been bullied and gaslit and strong-armed into going along with it. I'm just lucky that I have a husband who is so strong that even when I had moments of weakness and went, maybe we just go along with this, he said, absolutely not. No, we're not going to do that. And we surrounded ourselves with the right people.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because like you've already mentioned, you turn to counseling, and most of the counselors are they've either bought into it or they're afraid to go against the norm. Again, in Miriam's book, she talks about how that whole process over years to go from gender dysphoria to just this like, oh, they're just confused thing within the psychological profession. How they just slowly change that. And you wouldn't notice it, but again, that they admit there is no scientific evidence on which to base this change of these mental health problems.
No, and I consider it like the frontal lobotomy of our time. There will be a reckoning where all of of these doctors will be held to account. And we're all going to have to look back and go, which side were you on? We knew this was wrong. We knew that it was not helping children. Were you complicit in it? And I think we're starting to see that happening. The HHS has come out against it. The FTC just had a conference last week where they allowed these detransitioners and parents and doctors to tell the truth about this issue. So it's also akin to me, kind of like anorexia. When I was a kid, I had an eating disorder. I had body dysmorphia. That's what's happening. It's a body dysmorphia. It's a mental health issue. But when I was a kid, no one said, "Yeah, you are fat. You should keep throwing up your food. And maybe let's get you some diet pills so that you can feel more comfortable in your body. We'll just make your body thinner because you're meant to be a thinner person. You're right, you're fat." How evil that that's what's happening to kids who go to these professionals for help and they say, "No, you're right, you are born in the wrong body. Let's maybe chop off that body part and it'll make you feel better." It truly is almost Mengele-like, in my opinion, what these doctors are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting time. So do you travel at all in support of the work that the message you're trying to get out, or is most of it done online or in podcasts like this, or how do you spend your time promoting and trying to get the message out?
So, October of 2023, I worked in corporate HR when this happened. And October 2023, I finally lost my job as a result of being so outspoken on, mostly just podcasts and TV interviews and articles, my social media. And I basically blew up my career. And so, again, I say it's not that scary out here, people. That was a door God closed, that it was not closing for myself. Corporate HR is miserable. So, what a blessing. But that freed up the time for me to start Protect Kids. And I was really blessed to travel with a ministry called Don't Mess with Our Kids, or the Her Voice movement, Pastor Jenny Donnelly out of Oregon. And so I got to be, at the Museum of the Bible and all over the country, speaking to parents and waking people up. And again, what I learned is that it's just happening to people everywhere. Everywhere I've gone, people have a similar story to tell. Me too, me too. Even small towns in the middle of Nebraska, like, me too, this is happening in our schools here. So I've been blessed to be able to travel the country and tell our story in many different states. But, podcasts and a lot of the work I do is here in Colorado with Protect Kids.
That's so good, so good, and it is a message that needs to get out. And you're right, not everybody is going to take that on, even when they're faced with it with their own children. They'll just they'll deal with it one way or the other, but they don't go any further than that. So that's a blessing to a lot of people that you took on this calling and have become an outspoken proponent for protecting children, protecting parental rights, in particular in Colorado. And I just hope that other people across the country will see what you're doing and take it on as well, and stand up for our children and stand up for the rights of parents. And so
Many hands make light work. So my hope was always to open the door for other people to follow. And like, for example, when we filed our lawsuit in 2022, we were the first of its kind in the Mountain West. And now there are 5 lawsuits like ours that I know of. So the hope was always to educate people first and foremost to protect their families like I didn't, but also to open the door for other people to not be afraid. That, I really believe courage is contagious, and if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I have seen that. I have seen so many other parents not even follow in my footsteps, but just find the courage to be public about this issue.
yeah,
When
so
people say, "I'm sorry this happened to you," I go, "I'm not. I'm not sorry this
mm,
happened. Our whole family is better. We all found the Lord through this process." It was a really, really good church that was instrumental in helping to get our daughter out of the cult and to bring my daughter or my husband into his faith journey. And we're just a better family through and through because of it. And now I have this strength through my faith that I don't really care what arrows are slung at me. It makes no difference. I'm not trying to impress anyone but him. And we're just a better family through and through because of it. We're one of the lucky ones.
So what would be a simple message that you give to parents or to families that are find themselves in the midst of this craziness? What would be a simple um, word of encouragement, I guess, to them?
My message to all parents and grandparents everywhere, which is not always popular, just let me preface by saying this can be a controversial message, is to get your kids out of public schools.
Hmm.
I now understand this is in all 50 states. You're not immune in rural Kansas from gender ideology. As I said, 50% of the kids in my school identify this way. So I strongly recommend, and I am a Christian school, a charter school, and a homeschool parent. Is that sacrifice? Yes, but you either sacrifice for your kids or you're sacrificing your kids. So I think it's so important to help other parents understand that they have options and that there are other methods to educate their kids. Don't give up your authority to the school like I did. I handed it over, said, here's my kids, do what you will with them for 8 hours a day. And I now understand that there are better options out there for parents. But for the parents going through this, my advice is always cut off the negative influences. First and foremost, you can come out of this, and it's not going to be easy. But cut off the negative influences and replace them with positive ones. Get them out of the school, out of the friend group, off the internet, out of the chats. Move if you have to. Be drastic if you need to, but be sure you're replacing those things with positive influence. For us, it was daddy-daughter dates, going to the art store to get her supplies every week. She and I would go get Pokemon cards and a new Nintendo Switch game every week and play them together. Going outside on walks, youth group. It's just so important to get the negative influences out and get positive influences in. That's step one, really.
All right, that's awesome. Well, again, thanks so much for spending some time sharing your story, and I hope people will listen to this. I'll include your website in my comments on the podcast, and uh, I assume that on like the websites there's contact information on how to get hold of people that can help them if they need more help than what they're finding on your website.
Yep, I have several support groups I can connect people to, but the best way to get me is just I go by Erin for parental rights on all social media
Okay.
platforms, and I'm a one woman show. So if you message me, I am here to help any parent going through this.
Yeah. Thanks again, and thanks for coming and joining. And um, great story. Great story. So.